Guys, so I'm back at Into Moto in Warrington, and today I'm taking this beauty out. So this is Piaggio's Vespa, it's the PX125. It's a two-stroke, it's 20 years old, but it looks really nice, to be fair. It doesn't look like a 20-year-old bike. However, it's got a few quirky things. It's not the rev and go bike that I am used to. It's not one of those just sit on easy riding bike. There's some gears and everything to fiddle with, so I've never been on something like this before, so it might be quite entertaining for you to watch me try and ride it. Might be a bit jumpy today, but let's have a look around it the usual way. Check that out. I think it's been done very tastefully, this bike. So the standard bike has got an 810mm seat height. I'll sit on it shortly to show you how I look on it. But this, I do know, has had an aftermarket seat put on, and the seat looks quite girthy, so it may well be slightly higher than the 810 that you would get from factory. But it has been very nicely done with the Fred Perry signage all over it. It is nice and clean. I like the looks of it. I would say this is an old Vespa because it's 20 years old, but I know the aficionados, the proper hardcore Vespa previous owners or people who've still got them now, the really old ones, will probably say this is a modern one. But I would not consider this to be a modern one, albeit it has got disc brakes. It's got a strange setup at the back, and I say strange because my understanding is, I've not ridden it yet, but the engine is on the right hand side, so it's on the right wheel, and from what I've been told, that does kind of make the balance a bit off because all the weight is on the right hand side, so we'll see as we're going with that. And it's got a spare wheel. Again, I'm sure people will argue the toss or tell me I'm wrong, but again, I've been told the reason there's a spare wheel there and the reason it's mounted there is to try and help counter the weight because of the engine being on that side, trying to get a bit more weight on this side to balance it a little bit. But let me know if you disagree. I'm going off what I've been told in the garage. Now, different to a modern Vespa, this bike has got a foot brake. See that down there? There are a couple of twisty things over here as well, so you've got your fuel, and there's even a choke. It has got gears as well, so this is something that's a bit odd and strange for me. So you do have your clutch lever there, and to change your gears you're twisting your left hand, so it's one forward for first and then all the rest are back. So that's going to be a bit of a learning curve when I take it for a ride. Indicators, an electric start on this as well, so that's one modern touch it does have. This engine that's mounted on the back here, it's 123cc and it delivers 6.5 horsepower. Doesn't seem like a lot, however the bike itself is really light. It's less than 100 kilograms in weight, so that's really light in comparison to other 125cc bikes. The disappointing thing, however, if you're thinking of a bike to tour, the standard bike will only do 50 miles an hour. Now, I'm told this one has got a 175 kit on it, so it might produce a little bit more than the standard, so we'll see how we get on when we go for a ride shortly. It's actually alright this, I'm flat foot both sides, so it is a bike that would suit a shorter rider. However, They have made it a little bit taller with this aftermarket seat on, but it's comfortable, very plush actually. You can tell how much cushion's there. Yeah, for me, I've got short legs. I've got a couple of inches there between my knee and the front of the bike. So if you are a little bit taller and you're considering one of these, jump on one first, because I've got short legs, 29-inch inseam, and I've got a little bit of extra room, but not much. And also, because of this setup here, you've got like a rear pillion peg that's been added, but because of that, your feet can't move back much, so you don't have the usual scooter luxury of having different places to put your feet. It's kind of trapped a little bit. So that's the setup I'm talking about. Just looks odd for me. It looks like they've gone, oh, where does your passenger put the feet? Oh, let's just stick a set of handlebars on here and they can put the feet on there. Yeah, it's still a beautiful looking bike. It's just, yeah, I don't get that bit. So before I take this bike out, this bike is for sale for £1,999, so £1 short of £2,000. Is it worth it? We'll find out when we take it for a ride. Let's go. I'm a massive fan of Vespas. I'm a big fan of the modern day ones, and I know there's a controversial thing to say because everybody raves about the older ones, more character and all that stuff, and I get that, and to a certain extent I agree with it, because I do think the two strokes have got a little bit more about them compared to the modern day ones. However, the modern day bikes have got better brakes, more reliability. There's arguments to and fro, but then the ones that are 50-60 years old are still going, so then people say, well, yeah, but these last forever and the new ones won't, they'll fall to pieces. Well, I've got an argument for that as well, that most of those bikes have been stripped of bare metal and rebuilt several times in some cases, so yes, they will last if you look after them, but you still have to do a lot of work to maintain them, so there's an argument. But this bike is 20 years old. Clearly it has been done up really nicely, because you can tell the paintwork looks really fresh on it. I would bet that this isn't the original paintwork, but I don't have a problem with it. It looks nice in its current state. Somebody has looked after it. Lovely two-stroke smell. I absolutely love that. That just reminds me of my youth. The smell. Oh, first gear, clutching, move into first gear. So now you've got to ride it like that. It's kind of clutch in the air, so a bit weird. Okay. You can't beat a two-stroke, I don't care. Taking away the strange gear setup, and it's very different, but it's just that two-stroke noise, the two-stroke smell. Oh, every time I stop and I get a nice whiff of two-stroke, I don't even want to change gear yet, because I can see there's a junction there and I know I'm going to have to change gear, but I'm going to not do it till I get to the main road. Oh, that's weird. Now the gear changes are weird. It's a really, really, really strange experience changing gear like this. And I think the weird thing for me as well is because when you change your gear, let's go back into first, your hand is always like up or down, or yeah, depending what gear you're in. So it's a very strange one. So the screen that I didn't talk about on the walk round, you've got your rev meter and then it's got a digital speedo. So I know the old school Vespa lot are gonna say digital speedo. That's ridiculous. Who would do such a thing? It's nippy though. What a bonkers way of riding this is. Now, whilst it is fun and it's a completely different way of riding on a scooter, you really do notice the engine on the right hand side. So as far as balance goes, it just feels a little bit bonkers. It does feel nippy though. It's a fun way of riding, but completely and utterly bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers. And the brake is in a strange position as well, because it's quite towards the centre. So for me, I feel like naturally my leg is here, or my foot's there. But to actually put the foot brake down, you gotta move over. And the front brake on this is not great. I've not really had to think about gear changes for years and many years. It's just a natural thing. This, however, I'm having to concentrate on my gear changes because it is just a really strange way of doing it. Completely different. Now, do I like it? Yeah, I think I do. For that exact reason, I've been used to riding so long, I've not really had to think about it, and I've just been able to ride with little to no thought. And I think I'm liking this because it is a little bit different. The more I'm riding it, the more, I suppose, quirky. Oh god, there's gonna be so much hate on this. There's gonna be so much hate for me on this, just purely because I've never ridden a bike like this before with this gear setup. So apologies if you've had a bike like this, if you own a bike like this. Please keep the abuse to a minimum. Because it is a whole new experience for me. I'm not even talking like I normally do because I am concentrating. I'm actually enjoying it though. And well, it's a 2-stroke 125, so I'm loving the noise. I'm loving how nippy it is when you get in the correct gear. It does feel like it's got quite a bit of poke to it. Absolutely redonkulous, in fact. Let's just get in here. Now the indicators, it's an old bike, so they're not self-cancelling. You've got to switch to the left, you've got to switch to the right to turn it off, all that stuff. Brum, brum, brum. Oh, the back brake is considerably better than the front brake. The back brake is really good. The front brake feels a little bit like you've got to proper squeeze it to get it to do anything, whereas the back brake, the slightest touch really. So you do need to use both of them. Let's take it onto an estate. So the noise of this is just a typical screaming 2-stroke. So for me, I actually like it. I like the kind of cackling and bubbling that a 2-stroke does. I like when you stop, you get this wonderful 2-stroke smell. and I like the kind of quirky nature of the gear change. Oh, these gear changes. You do get used to it, but it's still, there's a lot of thinking involved that I've not had to do with riding for quite some time. Oh, look at that, like a boss. I say like a boss and then completely mess up a gear change. What a weird and wonderful thing. Pop, 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 pop. Let's give it a little bit. It does pick up speed really, really nicely. Now, I have pointed out on the walk round, these bikes are so light. They are really, really light machines. And because of that, turning round is very easy. It's just the gears, they're so odd. But once you get used to it, what I'm finding, these slow maneuvers and gear changes are really nice and simple. It is, however, a little bit different and strange. It's when you're trying to pick up speed quickly, that's when you find your thinking and your gear changes are a little bit more difficult. Yes, I know an old school rider will be going, what are you talking about, man? It's the only way to ride. Yeah, maybe if you've been riding like this for a while, you'll think I'm a bit of a plum. Hopefully by the end of this ride, I'll actually work out how to use it. But once you get into any of the gears, I mean, it is just a different way of riding. So, like, joking apart, it actually rides quite nicely once you've got the gear or the hang of the gears. It's just different. But the actual ride of this bike, it's comfortable, it's proper nippy. When you do twist that throttle and stretch its legs a little bit, it does move. A lot of people who like the older bikes, I'm sure will tell you that Vespas have got so much character, and the old ones have got loads more character than the new ones. And I need to know, where would you actually place this bike? Where would you place this bike in the old or new category? Is it an old bike? Is it a new bike? I would say anybody who has a new Vespa will say this is an old Vespa because it's 20 years old and the gearing and everything is like an older bike. But then the old people, not the old people, I'm not being ageist here, I mean like the people who like the older bike. You know what I mean? Stop it. You know what I mean? The people who like the old bikes will say that this is a modern bike. It's got a digital-ish screen on it, so it's got to be classed as a modern bike. Well, kind of get that as well, because it's kind of in limbo, isn't it? But I am curious, Vespa owners out there, the Vespa lot, is this a new or an old Vespa? Is this in between? Is it just individual? How do you rate it? Is it an old or a new? I don't know, you tell me. But what I'm finding, the more I ride it, the more I'm actually enjoying the quirkiness of it. And I keep calling it quirky just because it is different. It's not like a modern day one. It's not a rev and go. There is a little bit more to it. You're not just twisting a throttle. You are having to think about the gear changes. You are having to think, which I think a lot of the time with a rev and go, the ease of just jumping on and revving and going has made it too easy. But I think having this has just made me start to think about how to ride again. It's nice, I like it. My very first 50cc bike had that wonderful two-stroke smell, and I haven't owned another two-stroke since my first ever bike at 16. So the fact that I keep getting this wonderful smell every time I stop, it's just taking me back to a time where everything was nice and simple and you didn't have the pressures of life, and yeah, you're just very nostalgic. I don't know why I'm giggling. I'm going slow, but it's just so different, and I'm getting happy if I change gear and it changes gear nicely, and I'm actually enjoying a nice easy gear change where it goes through the gear without making me like bunny up. It's not making me kangaroo forward. Now, one thing actually, going back to just me not just being a plum changing gears, when you are going around the bends, it goes around the bends fine. It's when you're on the straight and you're just moving a little bit, or it goes over a bump, you do notice it is a bit kind of wobbly. It's probably the best way to describe it, and it is because of the engine being on the right hand side. It does make the balance a bit strange, and it's not dangerous by any stretch. It's not. I don't feel unsafe riding it, but you do notice a little bit of like constant wobble. Every time you hit a bump, it might kind of go a little bit to one side. Loads and loads of character. Oh god. Now I've just done a classic boy thing there. So I'm at the traffic lights, a young lady pops up on her 125 at the side of me, and I'm thinking, this has got a 170 kit on it, I'll show you how cool I am. And then I've just properly messed up my gear changes, and she's thinking, what a tit. It's a hang your head in shame moment. I do loads of those, to be fair. Oh god, I can't believe that. What an absolute plum. Oh, I hate that. Oh, she looked fit as well. Yeah, I'm not waiting in all that traffic. I don't care if I can't change gears properly. I'm still sneaking. Smell that two-stroke. Lap it up, boys and girls. What a lovely stink. I don't want to take it back. That's how much I'm enjoying the ride. That's something that you've got to get used to, really is. So when you give it a little bit of throttle, it has got quite a little bit of get up and go. But when it comes to braking, you can't get away with just using your front brake. You have to use your back brake. If you don't use your back brake, you are not stopping. And I don't think it's a bad thing. It's kind of, you just have to use your back brake and your front brake. You will stop very quickly if you use them both. But I'm liking that, having been riding for years now, this is the first time that I've had to really think about what I'm doing. I'm really having to think about my gear changes, and I'm really having to think about how I'm going to do it, when I'm going to do it, and I've just not had to do that for a while. And it's making me enjoy the ride perhaps more than what I would do normally on a rev and go bike. Yeah, so it is making me enjoy the experience a little bit more, because it's different. Now, if this was a rev and go 2-stroke, yes, it would be easier, but would it be as much fun? No, I don't think it would be. I think the fun of this bike being that little bit different is actually making me enjoy the ride more. A whole new experience for me, but one that I am enjoying. And if you are looking for something like this, if you want a bike that's a little bit different, if you're looking for a 2-stroke, get into the scooter clubs on something different. These are very different. Now, what I want to say, now riding this is a completely different experience for myself, because I've never ridden a bike that has this setup before. Now, years ago I went on a Simba. Now the Simba has got a crash gearbox, so that thing, you change gears without having to use your clutch. It was a bit different, but I liked it because of it being so different. So it kind of rides a bit like the Honda Cub with a crash gearbox. So yes, liked it. This is a little bit more complicated in that you've got a clutch lever, but then you've got your gear shifts with your hand. So when you're going through the gears, when you're in 4th gear, your hand is kind of down like that. So to change back your gears, you've got to move it back, and it's a different way of doing it. But because it's so different, I actually really like it. I like that it's completely different to what I'm used to, and it's made me think about riding like I've not thought about it for a while. I've got that gorgeous smell of 2-stroke, which I'm absolutely loving. As far as performance goes, this bike does actually get a shift on. It's a 2-stroke. It's a 125 with the 170 kit, so it's got that extra little bit of oomph. So for town riding, it's brilliant. And yeah, it's an experience. It's an event to ride. It's not just an easy rev and go, it's actually an event to ride it. I've enjoyed it. Now, if you're looking for one of these Vespas, this one is for sale at Into Moto, and it's only £1,999. So it's quite a cheap bike in the grand scheme of things. It's certainly a cheap older Vespa, but again, I'm not getting into the argument of older and modern, because this is kind of a take on both. It's kind of in between. It's got some modern touches and some older touches. So yeah, if you're looking for a bike of this type, I think it's a good price, and it's a brilliant bike to have some fun on. It's certainly something different. It's put a smile on my face today, and yeah, I've enjoyed it. So it's at Into Moto. I don't think it'll be here very long, just purely from what the guys inside have told me. These older bikes, the ones with gears and foot brakes, they don't tend to stay in here very long, because there's always somebody looking to buy one, especially for less than £2,000. So yeah, if I can get the video out quick enough, it'll still be available at Into Moto. That's going to do me. I am going to jump back on my own bike, and I'm going to go for a ride. So for now, it is goodbye from me. I'll catch you on the next one. Laters.